The best positive news was celebrating this week nearly 80 years after it was first introduced. Jane Fonda relaunched the Committee for the First Amendment. The Committee for the First Amendment was first created in 1974 and by Hollywood legends like Henry Fonda, Lucille Ball, Frank Sinatra, and Judy Garland during the McCarthy Era in an effort to defend free speech. Now Jane Fonda is bringing back the organization in what she calls the most frightening moment of my life. More than 550 Hollywood figures have already joined her in support, including Gracie Abrams, Glenn Close, John Legend, Kerry Washington, Natalie Portman, Pedro Pascal, Quinta Brunson, Spike Lee, Viola Davis, and more. While specific government leaders were not mentioned, a committee spokesperson said Fonda was inspired to relaunch the initiative due to the onslaught of attacks on free speech from the current administration to put on a united front against government censorship, intimidation, and fear. Why is this good news? As the committee said in its announcement, the ability to criticize, question, protest, and even mock those in power is foundational to what America has always aspired to be. In light of recent events, like Jimmy Kimmel being taken off air and President Trump saying networks were not allowed to hit Trump and promising to punish his enemies, people are understandably worried about their First Amendment rights. Fonda and others are using their power and influence to fight to protect those rights. Because of Jane Goodall, I became a primatologist. Here's the legacy she leaves behind. Scientists are using corals from other countries to save Florida's dying reef. Scientists at the University of Miami are testing corals from Florida, Honduras, and the Cayman Islands to find the ones that best survive warming ocean temperatures driven by climate change. With 80 of the world's reefs seeing dangerous levels of heat over the past 2 years, efforts to protect these critical ecosystems have shifted to replanting them, similar to replanting a forest of trees. And the effort in Florida is one of the largest in the world. So scientists are working to breed corals that can tolerate heat better, speeding up the natural evolution process to keep pace with more rapidly warming waters. For the first time in the US, their Fonda corals were planted in the wild. Why is this good news? The past 3 summers have been the worst on record for Florida's coral reefs, where more than 90 of the living coral off the Keys has died. Not only do these reefs preserve biodiversity and the larger state ecosystem, but they also protect its coastline from extreme weather events, hurricanes, storm surge, and more. Rebuilding them is critical to saving these communities and marine ecosystems from collapsing. Alona Maher gets her own Barbie doll, complete with broad shoulders, tunes by young athletes. Surging wind and solar have given Spain, one of the cheapest electricity markets in Europe. Spain has successfully decoupled the influence of fossil fuels on the price of electricity by growing its wind and solar installations, making its wholesale electricity price 32% lower than the European Union average in the first half of the year. This is despite the country having the 3rd largest gas power fleet in the EU, which typically drives higher electricity prices. That's because when low-cost sources like wind and solar grow enough, they displace gas and coal, leading them to determine prices less often. That displacement is happening in Spain thanks to strong solar and wind growth. In the first half of 2019, Spain's power prices reflected the cost of fossil fuels. In same number of hours, it was just 19 in the same time period in 2020 hours. Solar and wind generated more power than coal for the first time on record and outpaced growing demand in the first half of the year. Solar and wind generation together grew by 400 terawatt-hours more than the overall global demand increase in the same time period. Solar grew by a record 31 and wind by 7.7. Additionally, for the first time on record, renewable energies combined generated more power than coal. Total fossil fuel generation even declined slightly in the first half of the year. Analysts have often said that growing renewable energy won't lead to a reduction in fossil fuel use, but this data shows the opposite is true. Why is this good news? This latest data confirms it's entirely possible for the world to phase out polluting sources of power, even as demand continues to rise around the world. This latest data further proves renewable energy is a great investment for the planet and for people. Traditional burials are bad for the planet. So this woman created her own biodegradable cocoon coffin instead. The Wolbeja method is helping dramatically reduce dengue fever cases and could help tackle more neglected tropical diseases. Around 60 million recorded cases of dengue fever occur each year, and around 20,000 people die from it each year. The Wolbeja method is a promising solution that could help reduce the spread of infection and death. Wolbeja is a bacterium that occurs naturally in around half of all insect species, except for the mosquito that most commonly spreads dengue. Scientists discovered that when these mosquitoes are bred to carry it, they are less likely to transmit viruses. In trials in Indonesia, Wolbachia-infected mosquitoes reduced dengue fever infections by 77 and hospitalizations by 86. It's been so effective it could also offer an effective tool against other neglected tropical diseases like yellow fever, Zika, and chikungunya. New York will become the first state to require private insurance plans to cover scalp cooling for chemo patients. Scalp cooling is a treatment that helps preserve hair during chemotherapy. It's also expensive, with an average cost of between $1,500 and $5,000 per patient, which is often not covered by insurance. Starting next year, a new law in New York will require private insurance companies to cover scalp cooling for chemotherapy patients, making it the first U.S. state